And so we come to a prayer time. Look at your hands. Have a good look. However your hands look to you, they are most certainly clean in these days of regular hand washing to prevent spreading the coronavirus. Our hands really are the most remarkable and useful tools, involved in so much of what we do and how we do things, even in these days of social distancing.
The psalmist writes of committing his spirit into God's hands, and at times of being in God's hands. He also describes his desire to be delivered from the hands of his oppressors and from a hidden, invisible net that threatens to entangle him.
Our hands have become even more significant in these days of physical distance. We might long to hold the hand of a person we can no longer touch. We pray for the hands of medics to bring healing and comfort. We are grateful for the hands stacking shelves and delivering groceries and post. And we are extra wary of everything our hands touch that comes from outside our home.
This Christian Aid Week, we also think about how our hands can be far from idle. Though we're not handing out envelopes or hosting big brekkies or the many things that we might usually do ourselves with this week, our hands can still reach out virtually to our neighbours around the world. Neighbours in refugee camps, neighbours cramped in living conditions, neighbours without adequate hand washing facilities, neighbours who face the devastating impact of coronavirus with even less of the medical resources that we have struggled to access here.
We reach out by clasping our hands together in prayer for our neighbours and holding our hands open before God as we declare our needs and concerns for their well-being and our own. And so we come to a prayer of lament and intercessions. God, our refuge, we come to you with open hands. Some of us with hearts full of questions, some of us bruised by bereavement, some of us fearful of what the future holds. All of us stunned by the events of this year. Draw close to us now in each of our homes as we place our honest questions and hopes into your open, resurrected, yet scarred hands. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer.
With the honesty of the psalmist, the wrestling questions of Job and the lament of the prophets, we bring to you our questions or our silence. As we do so, we hold our index finger and ask those questions that most burden our hearts, whether in silence or using the chat facility to share those with God and with one another. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer.
Hear the cry of our hearts, Lord, silent and aloud, for bereaved neighbours near and far. Comfort those pained by being absent and hold close those who are hurting alone. Hold your ring finger and pray for the comfort of those you know who are bereaved, or simply sit in silence before God. So let us hold the silence together. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer.
On this Christian Aid Sunday, we pray for and with communities across the world who are most vulnerable to coronavirus. We pray for people living in refugee camps and city slums with limited sanitation facilities, who are unable to wash their hands regularly and who have little opportunity to isolate from others. We pray for Christian Aid partners working to provide soap and buckets, communicating clear, accurate information, raising the voices of the most vulnerable and ensuring they are kept as safe as possible. Take hold of your thumb as you pray for the most vulnerable, those closest to God's heart. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer.
In this season of Easter, renew us with resurrection hope, that while weeping lingers in this night, joy will come with the morning. Hold your middle finger and in the silence tell God what you most are looking forward to in the future, or simply sit in silence before God. God, in your mercy, hear our prayer.
For those who are having to self-isolate, which can sometimes feel like they aren't doing anything, remind them that we're all doing our part, saving lives by staying at home. Hold your little finger and ask God for what you need, or simply sit in the silence before God. God, in your mercy,
Hear
our prayer.
We pray for much wisdom and resources for those in local and national authority, for all frontline and key workers here in Britain, Ireland and across the world. Put your hands together and pray for the many frontline workers and volunteers, and for Christian Aid partners working to help others across the world, or simply sit in silence before God. God, in your mercy,
Hear our prayer. As we have clapped to honour them, we clap our hands now in praise of your glorious creation, and with the hope that the first shoots of another possible world are coming into view. So let's clap our hands in praise of God's glorious creation, and with the hope of those new possibilities for God's world. God, in your mercy, hear our prayers.
Amen.